Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 485. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot Segulin, the Duke of and the elder statesman of the podcast.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, Jim, we're going to be talking about Justice League vs. Suicide Squad number 3, Aquaman number 14, and Detective Comics 947. We actually delayed recording a day because of the fact that we realized we had 2 issues of the titles that we were talking about that just came out. So we wanted to get current for you. So thank you for your patience on this episode. There was a deliberate reason why we did this. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Jim, we are sponsored this episode by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. What is going on over at DCBService.com?
Well, we always have our bundles. They're continuing their support of Vertigo, continuing the support of Young Animals, continuing the support of Rebirth with multiple different bundles packs. And when you order the bundles packs, those are 50% discounts. But they've got a new one that they've added this month that I'm actually really excited for. These are the DC Hanna-Barbera annuals. We're getting Adam Strange and Future Quest, Booster Gold and the Flintstones, Green Lantern and Space Ghost, and Suicide Squad and the Banana Splits. You can bundle all 4 of those together, 50% off, only $9.96 for all 4 titles. All 4 of these I'm looking forward to, especially the Suicide Squad Banana Splits. Thank you, DCBS.
I want to know who the insane genius is that came up with that pairing.
I know, man. That is outstanding.
DCB Service, reminded everybody, is a digital partner. Whether you do My Digital Comics or that you do Comixology, make sure to log in, link your account to your DCB Service account, make sure to shop through their portal, and you earn 5% of those purchases towards your DCB Service order. It doesn't cost you anything more, but it's something that you can help out our sponsor and at the same time get something back for yourself. Over at InStockTrades.com, we're starting to get Rebirth collections. We've got the Superman trade paperback, Volume 1, Son of Superman, 50% off, only $8.49. Green Arrow trade paperback volume 1, Life and Death of Oliver Queen, 50% off, only $8.49. This is great if you jumped on a little late on the Rebirth bandwagon and you want to catch up on some of these titles. You ever get those trade paperbacks 50% off, $8.49 to start catching up on some of these books? It's a great deal. I want to thank InStockTrades.com for continuing to be our discount collected edition source. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you've ever read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
On that note, let's talk some comics.
Now I can get out of here!
Jim, our first chat this episode is going to be Justice League vs. Suicide Squad, issue number 3. Joshua Williamson is the writer, Jesus Marino on pencils, Andy Owens on inks, Alex Sinclair with Jeremiah Skipper on colors, Rob Lay letters, Marino, Owens, and Sinclair cover, Joe Madureira and Sonny Gao, Amanda Connor and Laura Martin on the variant covers, Amedeo Torraturo, assistant editor, Jessica Chen and Harvey Richards, associate editors, Andy Corey, consulting editor, Brian Cunningham, editor. Apologies for any name butchery, and Superman is, of course, created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster by special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. Dude, I thought this was going to be like this fun, action-packed crossover mini-series that was going to be like this cool little event. Yay. This is awesome. Like, first things first, gotta go right away to Max Lord. I didn't see that coming. I didn't see, I guess, you knew there was going to be some form of foil because, it's Justice League versus Suicide Squad. Is there going to be a third party? Normally you think when it's hero team versus hero team that there's definitely a third party involved. With this one, I was kind of assuming there might be a third party catalyst to the whole thing, but there's also that part, because it's the Suicide Squad and they are bad guys, do you really need that? So I didn't know what level of depth that was going to go to. We got this first Suicide Squad that's a part of this now, bringing in major characters, including Johnny Sorrow, one of the characters I really loved from JSA. I really love how this story went through. One question I have for you, but besides, are you liking it as much as I am, which I know you are, so it's kind of a no-brainer, because I know we were both chomping at the bit to talk about this. We actually delayed the episode a day so we could read the most current issue of it to talk about this. In one of the previous issues, Aquaman was fighting Killer Croc. Killer Croc knew him, and Aquaman didn't seem to understand why. What's that all about? Did you catch that bit with Amnesty Bay? I know it's a weird question to start off with, but I'm starting to wonder what the linking threads are between what came before and now. I could be,
right.
I could be linking something that's not linked, but there's a lot going on here that is really, and we're going to be talking Detective Comics this episode. We're talking Aquaman this episode. Detective Comics in particular starts to talk about some of what my thinking is about all this. But I don't know. I'm looking for things now. I got to admit, I'm reading into things that are there. I was looking at that. I'm like, does Killer Croc know something that we don't? I just want to know what's going on here. I'm having fun. I don't know. It's a great series. Did you catch that bit? And
I did not catch that. As you're talking, like, what? I did not catch it. I got to go back and reread issue 2, because that's where the fight scene. See, I was so caught up in the action of the fight scene. Just because how cool that was, a great fight scene going on with Croc versus Aquaman. You gotta absolutely love Croc bites out and goes, dang, again, another person who underestimated Aquaman, thinking, oh, he can just talk to fishes. No, he's his skin is hard as stone, and his fists are as well. Bam! Knocks him out of the water. I was so caught up in the action going on that I completely missed that. I gotta do another reread of that issue, just because I gotta see what you're talking about. So,
well, they had a reference to Amnesty Bay, and Killer Croc said that he ran in before, which could be totally from this universe. So I admit that I could be reading into that. I don't know. What I'm really loving right now. And this miniseries is a great example of what I'm really loving about what DC's doing right now. There's a lot of interconnectivity in their books and what's going on. When they do something like this could have been a throwaway miniseries. It's the farthest thing from it. This is an event. And it feels like an event. It looks like a prize fight on the cover, but there's a lot more depth to it. They're introducing real powerful villains here, bringing Max Lord in. In this issue, one of my favorite bits was Superman's reaction to him, because he knows him from the previous universe, including what things that Max Lord made him do when Max Lord controlled him. I love that was brought into this as a thing where he said, that's the one we need to watch out for. That's the most dangerous one of the batch. And Boomerang was laughing at him, and Soups is like, you don't understand who we're dealing with here, because the whole sacrifice storyline. I loved that was something now that was brought in. This is where continuity's cool. This is why people love it. One guy, if Superman remains, well, I mean, and obviously the Flashes are the connecting threads as well, but if those three are the only connecting threads to the previous universe that remains, I can live with that. Because now what you've done by putting them in here, every story we read before matters. Because they're the connecting thread to this universe. So even if they move forward and this is not connected to the previous universe, and Superman being here is not as connected as I think it is, I love that they're here, because people who were fans of the previous universe now have your connecting thread. And that's me. I'm one of those people. I grew up with this universe. I'm glad this guy's back. It's made those stories matter. And they're connected. Smart move on DC on doing this, because this miniseries made me geek out, because we knew what he was talking about more than anybody else in the room in the comic. I love those moments.
Oh, God, yeah. It was funny because that was a scene where it took me half a second for it to connect everything. Because I was reading it, and then then I was thinking, like, oh wait, that's the, yeah. Oh, and then it was one of those kind of, after reading it and seeing the scene, especially seeing his reaction going to Boomerang, that was something that's where it connected and clicked in. That once again, just how deep this is going on that. And the same thing with you. I love the fact that it was because Superman having that reaction because of what Max Lord did to him. Now, the question I had running through my head as soon as that started going is this Max Lord as powerful as the one that, Superman dealt with? Because from what I'm remembering from the past, from the other story, that Max Lord was a lot stronger mentally than this one is. Because this one is doing the manipulations and all that, but it doesn't seem like he's got a solid hold on his team that he had on Superman and that he was doing in the other universe. So that's another question that was running through my head is this guy as powerful, or what's going to be the power levels? What's going to happen when he deals with Superman? Is Superman going to let the team know, let the Justice League know, hey, this is what I dealt with this guy, and give his team the heads up saying, this is what we got to deal with. This is where this is the kind of power levels we're up against. Those are all the things that started just running through my head, as soon as the whole full story clicked in on that.
It was great. I mean, it just was really cool. It's something that seemingly is such a short sequence, having such a powerful moment to it. And that's what's great about this Superman right now, Clark Kent. Him being back is, to me, the geek out moment of comics right now.
Oh yeah,
everywhere he appears is interesting. Go ahead.
The other thing about that sequence I loved, and I always love when they do this, where you have high action, high seriousness, and then a splash of comedy in with it that doesn't take away from the seriousness and the drama. Like specifically Boomerang and that thing is like, can you turn off your eyes now? Just that little subtle kind of humor, little subtle bit right in there as you have this seriousness billowing and everything that just, you've got a very intense Superman going on. I thought that was funny, and just a bunch of the one-liners that Harley was throwing out there, never took away from the seriousness, never took away from the story, but still gave you a chuckle.
Yeah, and that's really important to me too, because I like humor in all these. We talk about the TV shows so recently, and the humor references that were in there are things that are very important to us. And for each one of those shows, humor's handled very differently because the tone of those shows is different. And I really like that this has found the right balance of humor. Like, even Amanda Waller's at the end saying, I need you to protect me from Max Lord. And the whole Suicide Squad starts laughing. It was great.
Part of me was wondering, was the Justice League laughing along with them?
It was clearly the Suicide Squad, but I was actually looking for that because of just what you're saying, because I wanted to know too, because I'm like, wait, the jury's still out on that one.
Yeah. A couple of them may have been laughing.
I looked at the beginning sequence with Flag and Katana, coming on in as the backup, and Batman's whole sequence where they're wheeling him down the hallway a la Hannibal Lecter. I love how he was talking right to Amanda Waller, saying, you have to know these restraints can't hold me. And it was so great how he broke out and did the whole Batman thing. It was just, I loved the sequence. Joshua Williamson and this whole creative team is really doing a great job on this book of making it feel big event. This is something where there's moments that are, you can cram a bunch of these together, make it too busy, and you never really appreciate the moments. Or you can pace them out properly and you can go, man, that was cool. The pacing of this is really what's working for me. The whole creative team knows just like when to pace out these moments. I know that a lot of that comes from the script. The art team is just right on point with what they're delivering here. It's a really well paced out story, and those do make a difference. When you do try to overcram it, it just becomes spots for the sake of having spots. Great, I got this high spot, but then you lose the depth that we're looking for here. This sequence paid out so much more because it led to then the great conversation between him and Waller that had those amazing moments between them. I love the Wall in this. That's a home run. The characterization's really strong.
Oh, God, yeah. This is one of those where we have the full creative team working in sync with each other. And this is a great team up, and I'm loving this, this unit on this book. Yes, just the story that's laid out is wonderful. I'm the dialogue between all these different characters, everything feels just 100% real for me. But I agree with you, just how the look of this book, the physical layout, just the physical property of this book is absolutely amazing. This is something that this story is awesome. I'm very happy with this story. I didn't know what we're going to get when we went into this, but I'm glad it's not just a team up between these two of them. There's actually this feels like this is going to have universal effects, ramifications throughout this universe. And I'm very happy about that because, again, we're getting a really cool book that's going to have some serious actual ramifications. It's not just a team up throwaway. This is something significant. And seeing, it's Batman versus Waller, that for me is a great, just, one-on-one, just, the strategery of Waller versus Batman's, deductive skills. That is for me one of the high points of this. Now, I'm not throwing away any of the other cool stuff but for this sequence between these two of them, and I love just not only the dialogue, just how this was laid out, how this was physically, Bats is physically, imposing on Waller, but you can tell she's not backing down because she's the Wall. It doesn't matter that it's the Batman. It doesn't matter who she's staring down. The Wall does not flinch. She does not back down. I love seeing just her strength, but also seeing Bruce is in there. This was a great moment.
Now, Killer Frost is going to be on JLA.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to read that. I think the handling of her in this, the interactions with her and Superman were really great. You talk about I'm a big fan, obviously, of Batman and the Wall. But when you see her talking to Superman, Clark's catching on. This is classic Superman. He recognized the fact that she could have gone right to the core. This is a guy that's fought Parasite, right? Who will leech and leech and leech and leech power. He saw her hesitate and knows that she could have gone farther than she did, sees the good in her, tries to then use that to make a connection, and I love how he did that. He tried to make a connection to the whole Suicide Squad to say you can be something more than Amanda Waller's pawns, but Frost was clearly hearing it. And I love the fact that they're going to put edgy Killer Frost on JLA. This series in particular has me excited for it. Obviously, I love her from the Flash television show right now, and I'm glad they're going the move of putting her on the team. But this story in particular, I'm like, wow, this really works in comics with a different sort of twist. And I like that Superman's an inspiration here. Very cool.
Oh, yeah. Oh, big time. Again, that right there shows the big blue. Right there. It's perfect. Just, again, we talked about when we're reading this, that's Superman. That's the Superman we like. That's the Superman we've always wanted. That's our guy. He's back. And this isn't a Superman title, but it's still the same person, the same feel. That's, when you get these characters appearing in different books, you want to see that. I love the Flash basically giving, Boomerang the shock using the prison cell to shock Boomerang. That was perfect. Again, very funny Flash moment. He knew what was going to happen. He set him up, gets zapped, and then even Suicide Squad's like, that's kind of funny. That was good to see him go down like that. I love those moments. Again, little funny bits did not take away anything from this book, enhanced it. Again, you have a moment of humor, and then you go right from that right into that really cool just dialogue between Superman and Killer Frost. Great pacing, great usage.
I think the key is what you said right there, enhanced it. And I think the way you put that is excellent. It did enhance it. And I think that's important with comedy. If you are balanced with it and you use it in the right way, it does enhance it. It adds an emotion to that moment. And it's important for that. These are some dire moments. Justice League's been captured by Amanda Waller in a cool sequence. I mean, their capture I thought was really cool in how it was handled. I liked the Batman escape and how that all worked. And this is Waller's way to get his attention, to be able to do the sit down with him to explain what's really going on, the big issue that's going on here, which I quite liked. Everything played out really in a cool fashion, and that's something I really enjoyed about this. It had some great wow moments, some great emotional moments. This is the kind of comic I want to be reading. Miniseries for a while there became kind of a throwaway, where it was like, okay, we're going to do this cool little miniseries, and it's going to, it'll be a spotlight of these characters, and yay. But they didn't really feel like they were an impact on the continuity, so to speak. It didn't feel like, something where you go, wow, unless it was directly having an event banner on it. You didn't feel like it was a big event. This feels really awesome. And it really does feel like it's a story that matters. I like that there's a spinning out of this. There's one-shots leading into JLA. That's a smart move, too, because I feel like, okay, this is the kickoff to the JLA series that's going to be going on. I feel like this matters, and it's engaged my interest even more into this story because it matters, and it feels like a big story. One of my favorite sequences, too, I want to make sure I don't skip this one, Harley Quinn and Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Even though you tried to do me wrong, I promise to write you every day, Wonder Woman. This is so great.
Again, little funny moments. Harley was just spot on throughout the series.
Yes.
You think back to when she and Wonder Woman were fighting. Last issue, she throws the bomb and Wonder Woman does the hero thing, grabs it and covers, so it doesn't, and boom, it was confetti bomb. It wasn't a real bomb. She's like, I made you look. I'm like, oh man, Harley, you're up against Wonder Woman here, and you're doing that stuff, and it was perfect. And I was just, again, had those moments where I was chuckling throughout all three of these issues where you keep getting this spot on, and I really do like a good bad guy, and Max and just his team, is just, these are some nasty, nasty creatures. And when they're questioning, and I use air quotes around the term questioning, that head monk. Because I loved how they laid that out, because they're showing just Max and him going back and forth. Max is using his influence, and the guy's fighting it, so he's not giving it up. So and I love then when they go to the next page and you pan back and you see, no, it's not just Max using his influence. This guy's got a sword in each of his limbs, and Dr. Polaris is manipulating it, and this guy's being hung by those swords in his bodies. Absolutely, I was like, whoa, nice one. That for me, that's a great evil person. That's a great way for them to torture. Not even just using the mental powers, but physically torturing the guy at the same time. As horrific as it is, I gotta say I loved it.
Now, who is Max trying to release?
That I don't know, and that's what I'm worried about.
Because he's got a pretty impressive squad as it is.
Oh God, yeah. And it's some type of godlike creature. And that's what has me worried as to what kind of, when you start getting massive powers of this magnet, there's no way he can control it. And there's no way that, it's one of those, they're building up, you have to have a villain that can possibly win. So you've got two teams, the Suicide Squad and Justice League, working together. So you have to have something of equal proportion to take them. His guys he's got right now aren't going to be enough to take the combined of those two teams. Adding this unknown party, that's what's going to take. That's what's going to kick it up to 11.
Talking about something that's really cool in this, Emerald Empress is here. And she's referencing the fact that the Legionnaire is in present day that we've already seen. So this connects again to that larger story that's going on. There's a larger mystery going on in the DC universe. This is something they're doing with the pacing really well. You could drop us into an event right now. Everyone would think it's cool. Most people would, because there'd be a big, exciting event. I like when they pace it out like this much better. Plant seeds. Make us go, oh, remember back in this episode or this issue of this mini-series, there's a link, and I like this kind of thing. We're going to talk about Detective Comics, which has a link. These little links and the way that they're dropping them along the way, building anticipation. I'm assuming this is all tying into next summer's if there's a big event coming next summer. I don't know if it's this. There was supposedly a 2-year plan to all of this that was going on. I can't wait to see what it is. Jeff Johns was recently quoted as saying that he's going to be writing some comics coming up soon. I'm not sure what. They didn't really announce what. But he also announced there's a big DC TV announcement coming out. So there's a new DC TV series that's going to be announced. It was just kind of cool to see that. But Jeff Johns coming back to comics is cool.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, he knows how to play the game. He knows how to give a little tease and gets people go, what about this? Because it's been a buzz. I'm not as up on the news as you are, and even I was able to pick up on that. So when I know it, it's something that's flying around there. And it's, again, I was, like you, I'm a fan of John's, and I want to see him back in a book. And I'm assuming it's going to be the big event coming up, and it's all connected to this, is my assumption. But again, what happens when you assume? It may be something completely different that we don't know yet. There may be another, nice bright cross out of nowhere.
Well, the next big event's being written by Scott Snyder.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Greg Capello, who did the, and I'm probably butchering his last name, so if anybody knows the pronunciation of the last name, I know I'm probably butchering it. But he was off doing creator-owned work, after the Batman stint.
Yeah.
He's back exclusive with DC for this big event.
Ooh, cool. I did not know that one.
So I don't know if that event is the payoff of all this. Jeff Johns, it's really interesting that his tweet had Dr. Manhattan pictured in it.
Ah, okay.
But to your point, is it linked to all that? I don't know. And I love that. I like that right now they're doing a great job of building anticipation, letting you know what's coming up without telling you too much. And DC's really nailing it right now for me as far as an excitement level that you and I have obviously been big DC fans the entire time we've been doing this podcast, right? I would honestly say that there's waves to that, where there's been some big moments where we've been more ecstatic than others. This is an anticipation. Boy, the entire time we've been doing this podcast, I don't know that I've been as globally excited about the line as I am right now. I've always had my favorites. I've always had my favorite writers. I've always had series that they've been doing that have been the ones that I've been wanting to talk about on the show specifically. Line-wide, what they're doing right now, the balance of the entire DC Comics line right now, and I'm including in that Young Animals and Vertigo and what they're doing. There's a great energy in what's going on in DC. Because when I look over at Vertigo, I'm thinking about, my favorite author, Gail Simone's writing a Vertigo title that's kicking it every single. I mean, so and it's a book that I want to put on the docket as something we're going to talk about real soon, just because I love that series. You've got Young Animals and that cool energy that's going on over there. You've got this stuff. In Rebirth, there's not a single title right now in Rebirth that I'm not digging. There's a difference in the energy in that than, I would say, the New 52, and even what came before it. I don't remember a time where I was having so much trouble when you and I would plan out episodes right now, picking books. And when I say that, it's because there's so much I want to talk about, to be able to pick those books out and to feel like, but I still want to talk about this. I'd like to talk about this title. I want to talk about that one. That's fun. And it makes it fun to do a podcast like this when the line is really so cool right now. A book I want to talk about really soon that I'm chomping at the bit is Green Arrow. Oh my gosh, the stuff that's going on in that title right now, it's fun. And I'm really enjoying the portrayal of Ollie and Black Canary in that book. Flash is a book that's constantly, the Green Lantern books are just kicking it. Wonder Woman, oh my gosh, we haven't talked about that in a while, and I really want to talk about that. We got Super Sons coming up in February. It's like ba-bam, ba-bam, ba-bam. Everything they're doing just seems to be a lot of fun.
Oh, God, yeah. Like, think about it. Like the Titans, Teen Titans.
Yes.
We haven't talked about, and absolutely loving those books. We've got the Batgirl books, Batgirl and Batgirl Birds of Prey. Oh my God,
yes.
It's and of course I'm echoing everything you said about Arrow, and the Greens and Flash and Wonder Woman, and just there's so many, and it's weird because we got to sit there and we got to prioritize. Like we got to talk about this. Okay, let's go, because we've been doing a lot of we've been covering a lot of Bats and soup books, but even like the new Superman, we talked a little bit about him, but haven't gone back to him after the first issue. So there's so many different books that we can talk about, and I'm like, it's one of those things. I'm very happy, with my reading, where I can sit down and go, okay, what am I going to read this time? Boom, 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 boom. Okay, and I run through a couple books because I do have a lot of back ordered. I'm stockpiling just because I'm running out of time in life, to do all that. But it's still a great problem to have. Well, I have 3 issues to read. Oh, okay. Sit down, read all 3, and you enjoy yourself. It's that's something with it. Again, I'm constantly finding myself doing it. I'm constantly enjoying it. So, yeah, it's the one thing though. To get back on Justice League Suicide Squad, Lobo.
Yes.
Okay, now this is the big bad. I always in my head I say there's two Lobos. There's the clean, pretty Lobo and the dirty, nasty Lobo. This is the dirty, nasty version.
Yes.
I thought the clean, pretty version was the one who was, going to be the mainstay. So is this guy a rollover from the last universe, or is there something else going on that I missed?
He was in this universe too.
Okay.
Remember, he was in the Lobo series.
I thought he got dealt with, though, in the other Lobo, and there was only one.
But he finds a way. I don't know.
He's Lobo.
He's Lobo. I don't know. I hope that they get to that at some point. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Your confusion is where mine is, too. I was just enjoying him so much. Lobo was one of those characters that I missed. And when I say I missed, I read some Lobo when Lobo was popular, but I didn't have the budget to get heavily into the Lobo, because Lobo had a Lobo craze. There was a time period where Lobo he came out and he just fit the era. So I didn't have an affinity for the character, like when he'd make other appearances. I always appreciated him, and I could recognize the fact that, oh yeah, he's a throwback, and it's a good wink and a nod to a certain era, and I appreciated his importance. But he wasn't ever one of those characters I was like, I'm really a big Lobo fan. The newer series, when they had relaunched it, I'm like, oh, this is a chance for me to get on board and to have my own Lobo, and I was really starting to dig that series. This just kicked it to a whole different. I'm like, I don't know what it finally clicked with this. I'm like, when he was interacting with Max Lord, and he's telling Max Lord, you better not be using those powers on me, and Max Lord said, I certainly wouldn't do that to you, and he's turning away and rubbing his nose.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is so great. What a great use of Lobo. I really love the character that he's powerful. I like his dialogue in this and his interaction with the team. I think this is something that Rebirth is doing really well, in that writers who are working in this world, this playground right now, are going out of their way to use characters that they are taking a look at their story and going, these would be great characters. Now, I don't know who's making the decision on which characters are being used. I don't know how collaborative that is between writers and artists. I don't know what editorial's role is in all this. Whoever's making these decisions or accepting these pitches and taking a look at some of the characters that are being used, my gosh, are they making good choices. This lineup, because I'm looking at the page right now with Rustum, Johnny Sorrow, and Empress, and Lobo, with all the bodies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, that is a good lineup.
Oh, God, yeah.
And Rustum, I don't even know who that is.
Okay, good. I didn't know who that was. I was going to ask you if you knew that one.
No,
but again, they gave us a good indicator on who this guy is. Mm-hmm. I'm already comfortable with him as a nasty killer. Just from what little we've seen, what information they gave us a nice boom, boom, boom. I love the fact that they're teasing him versus Katana. Because they talk about him being one of the greatest swordsmen in the world. Great tease right there. We're going to see, Soul Taker versus the Flaming Sword. So, again, I'm comfortable enough that I don't know anything, but I'm comfortable with who he is, what kind of person his personality is. I like that. So
it looks like he was in the previous universes, and it looks like he's taken on a few different looks. But I don't know. I don't know much about him. I want to read more about this character because I don't know. Yeah, interesting. I don't know. This book right now is just really, really grabbing me with its choice of characters and how it's being used and everything. Oof. I liked when the Justice League finally got let out and they had the conversation where they got to take a look at, as is true with the Justice League, you want to run away, right? You want to go, not run away, but I mean you want to go back to being the Justice League, doing Justice League things, walk away from Amanda Waller. In that moment, Batman's like, you got to hear what's going on here. We've got the first Suicide Squad that are going after a weapon. They're coming right here to Belle Reve to fight us. I like that that's the reason for these two teams to team up. It's not like we're going to all get together and go on a mission right now. They're coming here anyway, and we're all here. And Amanda Waller's worried that the crew that they have is not enough for the crew that's coming for them. That's cool.
Yeah.
Great way to build anticipation for these characters. I still want to know who Max Lord's after.
Or what he's after as well. It could be a what, because they're talking about just, there's something in Belle Reve that's hidden there that she probably kept it close to the vest, just kept it in close, so she could keep a direct eye on it. And again, what is this unknown factor? There's still going to be one more piece of the puzzle. And the question that runs in my head is when, Max gets his hands on it, what's going to happen to his team then? Because his team is not a group of followers. They're really there just because they're being manipulated and controlled. What happens if Max has to focus all his energy on whatever this new thing is? What happens to that? So there's going to be multiple, I'm expecting the main battle is going to be multiple front battle where they're dealing with the first Suicide Squad, they're dealing with Max and his other thing, and then who knows what else may come with it. So I'm looking forward to a really cool fight sequence.
His other thing's a guy, Jim. You and I both know he'll get free again. Wouldn't it be better if there were someone who could control him? Your powers are useless. You might be able to manipulate a pack of wild dogs, but you are not powerful enough to contain him. There's a him in this. So my question is the him at Belle Reve?
That's how I'm reading this. Because that's why he's telling his team, hey, we got to kill Waller. But he's going to Belle Reve for whatever this is.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Now, whether he's got to get the information on a Waller, which that'll be tough, or whether it's hidden in Belle Reve. I'm assuming, trying to think like Waller, whatever this unknown, thing is, she would have the key to it with her because she's going to be the gatekeeper for it. And that's part of the reason why I think it's at Belle Reve, why her Suicide Squad's there, why she's there. She's the gatekeeper to this, to whatever this is.
Yeah, it's just, the whole thing is just crazy cool. Can we talk some Aquaman?
Yep. Next discussion is on Aquaman number 14. The writer is Dan Abnett with artist Philippe Briones, with colors by Gabe Eltieb. Pat Brousseau is the letterer. Brad Walker, Andrew Hennessy, and Gabe Eltieb on the cover. Joshua Middleton on the variant cover. Amadeo Torratoro and Diego Lopez are the assistant editors. Brian Cunningham, editor, and Aquaman was created by Paul Norris.
The Deluge. I like that these stories have their own little banners and their own multiple parts. Aquaman as a series is really well paced. And it's honestly a common theme for the books that we're talking about this episode. I think one of the things that I'm really enjoying is the pacing of them. These are big stories. Aquaman feels like an event book, and I like that he's a guy. Jeff Johns talked about it when he was relaunching the Aquaman brand years ago. And just how there's this big underground world that is a big canvas for writers to explore, and how this character just has so much potential. How he was a fan of what the character could bring. And I really think this run of the series, you and I have been big Aquaman fans since the comeback. We've been big Mira fans since the comeback. This series really has done a great job of bringing all of that together to the point where, there's been times on this program where I've talked about the fact that I would love to see an Aqualad eventually. I don't know when you'd fit him in right now. They got so much stuff going on. I love that his court, the generals, Tula, they're really bringing in some great elements of what makes Aquaman really cool and interesting. I like that there's different factions even within his own people. People who tend to look to the past and traditions of Atlantis. Other people who are rallying behind their king and what he stands for, and people who fall in the middle, which I think at a time in our own country, when we're, taking a look at politics and I think having very similar situations, it's interesting to read a book like this where Aquaman is having such a cool political front on there. And I think there's some really interesting political depth to it. I think it's a timely book in that I think it's pretty contemporary right now.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's... Aquaman is one of those great books that has this really cool physical action going on. And then you've got this in-depth side stories. You've got this political intrigue. You've got this lifestyle. They're showing what the world of Atlantis is like. They're showing the culture. They got so many different fronts that they're pulling into this story that they could very easily get lost. You could very easily kind of get sidetracked or just focus on the cool big action sequences of Aquaman versus Manta or dealing with invasions and whatnot. But they've done this great balance, this great dance between the different pieces, pulling it in to the point where every part of this Aquaman story is important. And I think that for me is the thing that I'm really loving about this, that, yes, this is Aquaman book. Aquaman's awesome. But then as you're sitting there going, well, Mira's great. Well, and then you start throwing out all these other people, and you just naturally start, as you talk Aquaman, you're naturally saying, well, this one's cool. This one's cool. Plus, I'm loving the villains. I am so loving the villains in this. If, on paper, if I had heard that how, with this whole Nemo thing and all that, and how Black Manta takes it over, yada yada, I probably would be like, I don't know. But when they actually showed the execution, they showed how it played out. Everything from him, Manta sabotaging the opening day of his embassy, all the way through to him continuing sabotaging, getting America to send assassins to Atlantis to try to kill him. This has been that great manipulation, that great, wonderful villain that is Black Manta. And I'm just so excited for the level of just evil and or villainy, that we're getting from him. That it's multiple levels of, man, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. And then as I'm reading something,
wait, hold on. Did you say villainy?
Villainy, yeah.
Instead of villainy?
Yeah. Well, it's a combination of villain and strategery. I already said strategery once, so I figured I'll throw out a new word for you. But
you know what dumber's a combination of? Dumb and dumber. Villainy. All right, let's carry on from villainy. What's interesting in this story, and I really liked it in the beginning, there was that whole opening sequence where we see the Aquamarines coming in, but Aquaman with Joanna, where Joanna finds out that her father died, and is getting the whole story about what's going on, and she's left with Merc. And, life can be brutal. You're a tower of strength. To your point earlier, what you talked about, how you can bring humor in. The humor is handled differently in this book, and it's appropriate to this book. And that was a great moment where Merc didn't lose anything in what he is there. Masked in that, not masked in that, but hidden in that sequence is where you see Mira outside. I have no idea where Lady Mira is now. We know the Mira story. Mira's seen the prophecy of the future, and she is the one that when the king dies is destined to take, at least she's being told, is being destined to take Atlantis down a dark path. And because of that, she's backing away because she feels she's bringing bad things to the people. She loves Arthur, wants to marry Arthur, wants to be that person, but she's looking at this responsibility of everything is happening the way that they said it was going to happen. We are heading down this path of the prophecy and what it means. So it's an interesting storyline and path. You kind of want to shake her and go, but you love him, and the two of you together can talk openly about this and work this out. The trick is, though, we know what Aquaman would say. We know what he's already saying about it. That, it is something they can work out together and all that, but to her, it's the responsibility of, it's easy enough for you to say if it was you, but it's not you, it's me. If I'm going to head down this path, if I could head down this path, don't I have a moral responsibility to not do this? I like the conundrum. And I like that she is somebody that I think her moral center, while sometimes is very aggressive in this book, she has a strong moral ground and a strong sense of conviction. We've seen that a lot in this title from this character. And I really love that they're building that more in this sequence. And it is something that, they talk about when you keep a couple together too long, it gets boring or something like that. No, I think when you tell clever stories like this, where it adds another layer of depth to their relationship. You want to root for them. You want to see them work past this together. How they get there and what that looks like is far interesting to me. They have to. I want to see them get married. I want her to eventually be the queen. I love that these things matter to me because I care so much about that relationship moving forward. So when they do things like this with Mira, it's not background. It's foreground. This is in my face. This is stuff that's really important to me that's going on in the book right now. And it goes back to that pacing and balance you were talking about.
Oh, God, yeah. And, one of the things that I loved about that whole sequencing with Arthur and with Mira dealing with this was the fact that, within this issue, there's a point in time when Arthur's like, yeah, we'll talk about this, but then something comes and distracts it, and prevents them from having that sit-down, heart-to-heart conversation where, and I think one of the things that a lot of times we run into these traps where I'm sitting there reading a book going, all you got to do is talk it out. Well, here they know they have to talk it out. It's just life is getting in the way. It's not that they're being stubborn. It's not that they're not thinking, hey, let's talk this out. It's just an invasion and this and this and that and death and body. And it just all these different things are preventing them from having those conversations. And I think that for me is something I absolutely love about all that dealing on, all that's going on where, what could possibly be solved by a simple conversation is getting prevented because of the events that are happening. And some of those events are actually further strengthening Mira's concerns. She's seeing Atlantis go down a dark path. She's seeing the potential for, planetary war, and she's like, hey, I don't know, maybe the prophecies are correct. And I really dig that.
Yeah, that's something where you can believe that. In the meantime, you got this political intrigue going where he's got a cabinet who doesn't necessarily believe that this Nemo group even exists. And the ones that do and support him are like, but the U.S. is already attacking us. Like, here's the thing. The U.S. has attacked. The Aquamarines being sent there was an attack. This isn't the first time. So they're like, regardless, they have done this. These are this is concrete. This is real. I understand what you're saying about Nemo, but the events are already in motion. These are things that are already happening. Where does it stop? And how do you deal with the fact that our people have died already from this? So what do we do? Give them a pass? Say, oh, no biggie. It's an accident.
Yeah, no.
Well, no. So this is where I love that I understand why the U.S. did what they did in this. But I love that I'm sitting there saying I'm being critical of them. I'm being critical of the Atlanteans. I'm being critical of Aquaman. And I'm seeing all sides of it. I understand why they did what they did, but I also think what they did was wrong. I understand why Aquaman's thinking the way he is. There's parts of it where I can understand why his cabinet's looking at him saying, you're wrong. That part is really fun about this because it adds a different layer to the story that as you're reading from panel to panel, you're almost finding yourself sympathetic to every perspective because they're being so fleshed out as they go through. And that's where the book gets really intriguing with its political intrigue. When you understand the sides of the different factions, I'm not saying that you agree with every one of them, but you understand them to that depth. Even Manta, what Manta's trying to do and what Nemo as a group's trying to do. You understand their motivations and their conviction to what they're doing. That stuff makes for great storytelling. And that's what this book is handling extremely well. It's got a lot of characters. It's got a lot of different factions and different relationships. Aquaman's good guy side, in general, has a ton of factions, especially if you include the JLA and how they were handling all of this.
Oh, God, yeah. And one of the things that I digged about, one, it's kind of funny how, when you look at within the group, within the Atlantis, their political structure, within their intrigue, I loved how the fact that, and you talked about earlier, how America is their adversary. Yep. America has attacked them. Even when this is all said and done, even when this story is resolved, there's still going to be a lot of unresolved issues that between Atlantis and America. Because even though Nemo is manipulating, they're pulling the strings, it is still America has been leading the assault. has been leading this thing. So you've got Arthur dealing with the fact that, his home, his two homes right now are at war with each other. And I loved how that keeps coming into factor, that he is Atlantean as well as American. He is both factions. He's, both sides of this war. And I love seeing him deal with that. And I know, one of the things I'm thinking off page is once this is resolved, once all this is cleared up, what does that mean for the Atlantis-America relationship? The Atlantis surface world relationship. There's going to be some, lingering ramifications from this. That's something that, again, laying down the long-term storyline that's going to come out of this, I'm equally excited about.
So when most of Aquaman's cabinet, if not all of them, or the people that he was meeting with from the various committees were killed, Mira shows up on the scene and comes back in and joins the fight. I loved those moments because you could still tell she's very torn over what to do here and what her role is. It's creating a distance between them. And I really like when Aquaman's like, listen, modern warfare, the Spec Ops removal of a leader of a rogue nation is considered fair game. One death to curtail a greater war. You accept this? No, Mira. This conflict just went up a gear, which I imagine pleases Nemo and whoever is in charge of it very much. And that part's great as he's going through there because he's talking about, this is the reality of politics, the reality of being a leader. It's the difference between when you're reading about a king. And this is something that I think this book has done really well. We've got his human side when he was raised, and we've got the whole town that supports him overall. Even though some of them had some issues recently about him, he's still their guy, their local guy. And they talked about how he saved him and kind of, in many ways, vindicated him on television for who he is. But even they have only so much elasticity on what that relationship is. We're seeing some of that in this, and I really like how they're poking holes in that. We get back to Atlantis, and we've got a regal king who was, you talk about reluctant leaders. He was reluctant to become a king. But now he's fully embraced it to the point where he's saying things that, listen, if I'm wrong about this, I will abdicate the throne. But I have to at least be given the opportunity to explore it and to prove that I'm right. And I mean, the whole bit where he's talking about there, the surface-born have always been against us. This is a culmination of centuries of fear and rivalry. I would be failing as your king if I did my utmost, if I did not do my utmost to stop this myth from becoming a reality. And, I understand that if this doesn't work out, I will accept that my dream of peace is foolish and unworkable. And I will step down from the throne. Throwing that gauntlet down there and saying, listen, I'm going through and we're going to explore this. We're going to determine what's really going on here. I believe there are people at the forefront doing this. And if I can't turn this into something that will create a greater peace, I need to step down. Because this really is the platform I'm running on. Here's the thing. If he's right, there should be people rally crying behind him. And I can't wait to see where this goes if he is. And if he's not, both situations make for great comics. They've done a great job of taking this to the point where I really believe this is a challenge for him. And I don't think it's a foregone conclusion which way it's going to go. That's compelling to me.
Yeah. The end game we still haven't. I'm pretty assuming that he's going to, when everything's said and done, he is still going to be on the throne. They're not getting rid of that. But the fact that they're laying this out nicely in that, it's not just if I can't defeat this enemy, I'm going to step down. He's admitting that if the peace between the surface and Atlantis isn't possible. Once he's willing to, then he'll step down. There's a whole different story there in that, maybe he can identify who, he'll 100% identify who is behind Nemo, 100% take them down. But still, if peace isn't possibility, if it is a fool's errand, he is stepping down. So there's going to be possibilities in that way where, he takes out the bad guy, but he still may lose the crown. And I thought that for me was kind of interesting because, my first read through, I was kind of like basically dealing with it like a loser leaves town match in wrestling. The face is saying he's going to leave if he loses. Oh, he's going to win. But then you start rereading what he said. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just, I'm going to take out Nemo or I step down. It's, I'm going to prove that there can be peace. And maybe there can be, maybe there can't be. That's the way this story is laid out. We could have an Aquaman wins but still loses. I think that for me is going to be curious to really see what happens in Atlantis. Who would take over the throne? What's the succession like? What's the rules, and what part will Arthur Curry play in Atlantis? Will he still be around, or will he be on the surface, or will he be option C, somewhere else? There's a lot of stuff they're laying out here where there's multiple ways this story can go. I think that for me is, again, really cool action, cool intrigue, cool just social commentary on this society, but also on the surface world society. They're doing some really great stuff with Aquaman.
They are. It's really a terrific book. That's some of the things that I'm really digging about this is just, again, what a great book that they're putting out. And how I'm not really always sure where they're going to go. That's a lot of fun for me in my reading. I like it when there's a title that I'm enjoying reading, and I'm not really always 100% sure where they're going to go with the title. Can we talk some Detective Comics?
Yep.
Okay, our final discussion this episode is going to be on Detective Comics 947. James Tynion IV is the writer. Alvaro Martinez on pencils. Raul Fernandez inks. Brad Anderson colors. Marilyn Patrizio on letters, Jason Fabak and Brad Anderson on the cover, Raphael Albuquerque on the variant cover, Dave Wielgo's assistant editor, I think, Chris Conroy editor, Mark Doyle group editor, Batman created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger. And apologies to anybody on this book for name butchery. Wow, the Batman titles right now are really enjoying amazing creative teams. I think they're just books that are meant to watch. And I like you, I'm including Batgirl, Birds of Prey, in that line. I mean, it's just really an interesting line of what's going on. This story and what they've done with Spoiler, in their world, because of how fast-paced it is and everything that's been going on around them, they jumped right away to the Victim Syndicate after what went on with Batwoman's father. She hasn't really had a chance to process or deal with Red Robin's death. And the last person who's really going to be able to help you with the need to open up and chat is going to be Batman. And I like that they play into that. It's one of Batman's flaws. And it's something in the previous issue that they talked about where Batman was talking about with Tim, his time of, he and Tim worked together talking about what this team was going to be. And Tim had a better sense of big picture, what this team was going to mean and what it could be and how it could grow into something. And Tim being that kind of advisor to him, I really have loved how in Rebirth they've really taken we talked about how Teen Titans was, in the New 52, a great launch to getting Tim gradually back to the Tim that we liked. This kicked it up that notch in this title. It brought him back, I think, full circle to the character that so many fans are passionate about, and put him at the forefront of an upcoming event. Who knows when that's going to come on the table. But man, am I enjoying his usage in this title. I keep talking about him like he's in the past tense because I'm looking at Spoiler right now, who's dealing with grief over him. And she's looking at this. She really was pulled into the nonsense of the Victim Syndicate. She believes they're wrong, so she hasn't crossed over to their side, and it looked for a little bit there that she may have. Now she's remaining a true spoiler, a true neutral party. She's against what Batman's doing and believes Batman should unmask, walk away. She believes also that the Victim Syndicate should be shut down, and they should go their own ways. So in her mind, she really is kind of that person who's speaking for the citizens of Gotham. And I liked that reference in this particular title. What they're doing with Stephanie Brown right now is really interesting to me. She's a character who, I think with this quote-unquote fake death of Tim Drake, we've gotten an opportunity to see Stephanie be spotlighted. And now she's that interesting character again. I do want to see her back with the Bat team. But I can wait for it, because I'm loving the ride they're giving me right now.
They are just hitting on so many levels with her that, I'm very excited, very happy. Just, it was one of those things when they kill off Tim, and I was like, oh man, because I really wanted to see more of the Tim and Stephanie interaction. But by killing him, and I'm doing air quotes around killing,
sure,
by killing him off, they've really given this character the opening. We talk about death in comics and making it be significant, making it be part of the story, making it not just to kill. Well, that's what they did. Right here is a very prime example of how you use a death of a character. How do you use something like sort of like this to alter or to, to let the character grow. Stephanie already had some really cool character history in the brief time that they were, she's been brought back in this. But this really just this was a great, stepping stone for her. And again, Batwoman, great stepping stone dealing with her father. All these different characters, we're getting these moments where we can really see them, shine. And it's something that I was like, man, this is some great stuff going on. Again, not just cool physical story that we're getting, but just the emotional spectrum that we're covering, the characters, who they are, what they are, the story outside of the costume. This is something that I'm like, man, this is what I'm really loving about the comics right now. They're not just focusing on the cape and cowl. They're focusing on the person behind the mask. And that's something that, you really need to have for a really awesome story. And Detective has been hitting it, just hitting it out of the park with that.
Harper, Cass, you're really taking all these characters and bringing them back to the forefront. Really done a great job of making these characters these are characters that are very important to me. I've done a lot of reading with them, and these are starting to feel like those characters again. These events, it's one of the reasons why I said earlier in the podcast, if these really aren't the ones from the previous universe, I'm okay with that. This book does make me start to question that, though. And really makes me start to believe they may, in fact, be exactly those characters.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm sitting there, and at times when I'll start thinking, is that previous universe, is it current universe? But in the end, I don't care. I honestly don't care. Because I'm getting such a really cool person that if, when everything is said and done, when the big bad and all that is dealt with, and when the final, piece falls a couple years from now or next summer or whenever it's happening, as long as this story keeps progressing the way it's going, I'm going to be happy. If some of these people are past universes, some of them are current universes, mix, mash, intermingled, whatever you want to do with it, I'm cool with that because they're laying such a great groundwork that they're just, the story that's unfolding in front of me in these different titles has me so happy and just so, man, this is, it draws you in that I'm cool with however they're going to play. It's one of those things where, complete faith and trust in the story being told, and, especially, especially James Tynion IV. He's one of those guys now that's on my list of I will always read his books. I will always go with yes. Okay, in him I trust. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. And again, there's that list with me of these creators that I completely trust is growing and growing and growing with each of these titles. And I think with each of these interconnections and each of these different pieces getting laid out, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, he's on the list. She's now on the list. My list is getting pretty long.
Yeah, I honestly like that we have more and more of these creators that are having a chance, because he did a lot of the really great, he was involved in the weekly book, he was involved in a lot of backup stories. He's somebody who I'm glad is getting an opportunity to really shine in this title. I mean, this is a high-profile title to be involved in, and it reads like a high-profile book. They're doing some really unique things here, and using Batman as a centerpiece to really spotlight again characters that we want to see in the foreground and be a part of this. And what makes them work is their interactions with Batman and what they bring to the table. Spoiler, this moment, what about me, Stephanie? How are you planning to beat me? I love that this is making her, once again, a significant character. This is a girl who in the previous universe earned the mantle of Batgirl. We believed she earned the mantle of Batgirl. In this universe, they've totally upped the ante on what it means to be spoiler. I love that the costume is reminiscent of her old Batgirl costume. I don't need her to be Batgirl. I just need her to be cool. And she's cool. Yeah. I love that this storyline makes a lot of sense for me in what's happening here. The victim syndicate, the first victim. I love that we don't know who that is, because this person has gone out of their way to make themselves completely 100% inaccessible. There's no way to determine through fingerprints or anything like that, because they're gone, who this person actually is. Nobody knows. I love that. I love that mystery, because this is somebody I do want to see again. As the storyline goes on, I want to see what Stephanie Brown does. Does she come back to the team, and how? Right now, it seems like she's going out of her way to send the message, Batman, you don't belong. Took out the bat signal. I mean, it's, really interesting stuff that's going on here.
Yeah, I know, and that's the cool thing, because we got these great action sequences where she takes out the full team. I loved how she just went bam, 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 took them all down just because of, the intelligence. It wasn't a physical fight. She knew their equipment. She was able to use that against them. And then with Batman, he's like, I'm not going to throw down with you. You know I can't take you, but you're going to shut yourself down. And I love how she stood up to the bat, flat out, toe-to-toe with him. It wasn't a physical fight, because that's not the kind of fight you bring against Batman. It's the personal fight. It's the emotional side. It's the intelligence, that you need to have to beat Batman. That's how you got to take out the bat full time. And I loved how the fact that was her plan all along. Not all along, but when she starts laying out, when she realized what's going on here, this isn't just a person dealing with her grief, because on the surface, you could kind of say, oh, she's just, kind of going through some traumatic stress, post-traumatic stress, dealing with grieving, yada, yada. But it's not just grieving. It's not just about that. It is truly about helping the people of Gotham. How many times has there been some great Batman stories where they ask, does Batman solve the problems, or does he create the problems? Should we have a Batman in Gotham? What will happen if there is no Batman? And I love the fact that one of his people, someone that's trained under him, is now saying, hey, let's look at this. Maybe it can be different. Maybe if we didn't have the Batman, Cassie would get actually trained and would go to a foster home, and she would have had a normal life. Maybe Clayface would actually get cured. Maybe this I did. And I loved how she kept laying out each one of them, saying, hey, we could have an actual decent life. Batwoman could be training at the police academy instead of a bunch of vigilantes. Let's train and, teach these, the police how to actually deal with this problem instead of solving it for them. I love those moments. It was one of those things where you're sitting there just reading along with her going, yeah, I kind of agree with her. You can't completely say she's wrong here. And that's, for me, when you got the quote-unquote villain of the story making valid points, that always makes for interesting stories.
Batman's apology made sense, and Batman's trying really hard to take in all the information from all sides and find a happy medium, which is not like him. He's recognizing the situation. He values Stephanie enough to listen to what she's saying. And listen, I can't do what you want me to do, but I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. He's trying to meet her halfway, and maybe even more than halfway, in a way that isn't normally him. And I really like that when he cares about people, you see a different layer to Batman. I love that he apologized to the victim syndicate and was trying to find them help. That is true Batman. Batman does do that. And we see a lot of times outside of the costume where Bruce Wayne will be the one taking that extra step through some foundation to help somebody get on the right track, right? Mm-hmm. This storyline just really does a great job of delving in into dealing with all those things that I really like. So Stephanie, when she's driving away and she's crying in tears, and you just know she's torn inside to a certain extent, but she believes this is truly the righteous thing to do. She didn't side with the villains. She didn't side with Batman. She is really a spoiler. She is that person who's going to come in when you least expect it and take things down. I wonder what's going to happen when Tim eventually does return, with all the things she's likely to have done to sabotage along the way.
Yeah, I know. That's, again, you start thinking of what's going to happen next. What about this? What about that? That, I think, is one of the cool parts about the Stephanie story, and this what's going to play, where's she going to strike next, how's she going to strike next. We know she's not full on evil bad guy, but she's not going to make it easy on the heroes. She's going to be the spoiler. She's going to be the one. She's not going to let the bad guys get away, but she's not going to, it's not going to be an easy road for anybody who's part of the Bat family. And I think that for me is going to be the interesting thing. The next round between Stephanie and Cassie's next round between Stephanie and Harper. When that actually happens, if Harper does sign on to Team Bat, where is this going to play out? When Tim comes back, how is he going to play into this story? There's so many different things that this story can swerve to that, you kind of sit there, well, what about this? What about this? That's, I think, for me, an excitement of it.
You said she's not full on evil.
Right.
She's not really bad at all. It's interesting on this end. She just has it's almost like, I guess, different philosophies.
Yeah.
Because she didn't side with the bad guys at all on any level. And you can't argue that, like, what she did with the bat signal was really not meant to do anything other than to keep Batman from being a part of that. We saw the police handle the situation. So she's sending a certain message of, you're not needed. People will handle things themselves. And she's trying to do things for the agenda of her message. It's an interesting sort of story where I would say she's not evil, she's disconnected. She no longer is emotionally connected to Batman's crusade. She blames it for what happened to Tim, is seeing that other side. I can't wait to see where this story progresses.
Yeah.
Does it take Tim coming back, or will she get there on her own? Will she come back to the team? I don't know. I really like reading this story, and that she matters so much to me because she always has. But I like that right now. I'm like, this version of her really matters to me, and her plight and what's going on. There's the familiarity that's there that really, really works for me.
Oh, big time. And I always think about, what about Tim? What's going to happen there, and how is he going to react to what she's doing? Is this going to be a problem between the two of them when he comes back? How is he going to deal with that? How is she going to deal with it? There's so many different levels of where this is going to go and how this is going to go. It leads for a really cool just anticipation of the story. And again, I absolutely love Clayface in this. I so want to see him have a full-on face turn. I want to see him be a good guy. I want to see him maybe even get cured. I wouldn't have a problem if they got rid of the villain known as Clayface as a result of this story, just because I'm starting to really like Basil, and I want him to win. I want him to have a good life. And I loved how the fact that he even played a factor of in this where he's saying, hey, I was a monster. I did horrible things. This is my chance for redemption. And then even later in Arkham, he's visiting, what's her name? Glory. He's visiting Glory and, trying to maybe going to work with her and maybe help her out. So it's that whole kind of the birth of a hero here, the redemption of Basil, and I want to see that happen. There's so many different stuff. I'm like, I want this, and I want to see Batwoman and her father have their connection, have their meeting. I want to see that conversation between them, and I want to see eventually a redemption between the two of them because I love that team up of those two working together. There's so many stuff. I'm like, I want this, I want this, I want that. There's so much stuff that the Detective Comics has to offer right now.
Yeah. That part is something that I think is really interesting. Basil, you mentioned him. And I think didn't she go by the name Mud?
Yeah, I think. But her real name's Glory.
Right. No. I'm just going by, she does have a code name, and she's going by that piece. I'm with you that I would be very happy with Clayface turning good and continuing this journey. He's a character who's really grown out of this. I know Batwoman's getting her own series. I hope that doesn't mean she's off the team, because I really like the team dynamic here. But I'm glad she's getting her own series again. This is going to have an arc called Batwoman Begins coming up, and I want to see that. I'm glad it is spinning out to its own series for Batwoman, and to have her back monthly is going to be something that I think is I've been missing in this. So it's great to have that. With him, I'm so open-minded as far as what we end up doing with this character that it's something I enjoy. Batman and Batwoman sequences and the fact that they're related and how they're using that relationship in here, I think is something that's really good. You need to go talk to your father. That whole bit. I think was something that was really good. I can see you closing off, Kate, similar to me. I lost 2 people that I care about very much. I don't want to lose another. And I like that there is this partnership building between the two of them that I'm finding just incredibly interesting. Very well done.
Let's talk about Tim.
Yeah, where exactly is very far away.
I know.
And Tim sees something. Tim gets out, stops, and goes, that's not possible. So what does he see? Yeah. What is there that he doesn't understand? I want to know. What does he see that he doesn't? And here's Ozymandias. It's Ozymandias. It's got to be. You will soon enough. Yeah.
No, and I think and you see that sequence after he's like, that's not possible. I don't understand. You see him kind of have that defeated look on his, face when he's, teleported back into his cell, but it's still, I love those moments because I'm going through, okay, what did he see? Who did he see? What's going on out there? And there's so many different things that are running through my head, like the multiverse of Tim Drake that he is seeing, or various people, or the end of the universe, or I don't know what he saw. I so want to know, but I loved how he was able to escape. I love just seeing him break down his armor, and he's taking the different pieces, makes a cutting torch, still has some of his gadgetry. He still is Robin. He still is Tim Drake, and I love just how he breaks down it's just showing the different pieces, how he's taking it apart and using it to improvise, adapt, and overcome. This is Tim Drake. This is this really awesome hero that I absolutely love to have around. So excited to see. Man, he initially gets out. Granted, it's not far enough away because the bad guy brings him back, but I do like the fact that he is still fighting and he is still going, and we're going to see what's next.
What did he see? I want to know what he saw. Yeah. And I love this mystery. This is how you set up a story. And it's set up in multiple books. There's different things going on that I just want to see. I know that Oz is appearing in Superman. He's been the one that's been watching things over there. I can't wait to see how this all ties together. This is how you really make an interconnected universe have some importance. And I cannot be happier with what DC's doing at the moment.
Oh, big time. Big time.
Great molecules! They're programming the computers for a chain reaction to blow up that atomic pile!
I want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We always have that in our show notes and on our website. We love having you a part of our show, so feel free to call in to talk about anything we talked about today. And even if there's comics we haven't talked about in a while, something that you're really excited about that's going on TV, games, whatever, that's related to DC, something classic that's been on your mind, throw it out, and we'd love to have you a part of our show content. Sponsoring this episode, once again, is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what's going on over at DCBService.com?
Well, we always have our bundles. Thank you, DCPS, for that. Great 50% off on different packages, including Vertigo, Young Animals, Rebirth, different packages. But also we have the DC Hanna-Barbera annuals with Adam Strange and Future Quest, Booster Gold and Flintstones, Green Lantern and Space Ghost, and the Suicide Squad and Banana Splits. All of this bundle, 50% off, only $9.96. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, I want to remind everyone that they are starting to release Rebirth trades. They have the Green Arrow Trade Paperback Volume 1, 50% off, only $8.49. Superman Trade Paperback Volume 1, 50% off, only $8.49. I recommend both of those highly. Great reads. Thank you, InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com for continuing to support our show. Also want to remind everyone about RagingBullets.com. That's the place where we will tell you when our episodes are coming up and what we're currently working on. That leaks out to Facebook and to Twitter. We're also on Google+. You can find me on the PlayStation Network on Raging_Bullets. Feel free to add us, whatever place makes the most sense for you. We love that you connect with us and are part of our podcast. Our next episode, we got a lot of things in the works right now. So we got some comic-related episodes coming up. We have a couple other potential opportunities, including some guests that are going to be coming on, that I'm going to save for right now because I'm not quite sure timing-wise when those are going to go on. So I'm not trying to be vague. We just have a lot of cool things in the works, and it's a matter of scheduling them and getting them all lined up. We are trying to, we're actually committed to being at least 4 episodes a month. We're going to try to, in January, sneak in a 5th episode. So we have, in our effort to... We're trying to align episode 500 as close as possible to our anniversary of 11 years. So Jim and I are going to do everything in our power to make it as close as possible to the end of March with episode 500 of our podcast. But regardless, we got episode 500 on the horizon, and we are back to 4 episodes a month. So yay, we got 4 episodes in December. We're going to do the same thing for sure in January. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Bye!
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can 2 grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You-Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.